The thing about Zophiah and libraries is that she's always losing library books. She says that she hasn't lost them, and in fact that they aren't even overdue, really. It's just that even 1 week inside the Faery Handbag is a lot longer in library world time. So what is she supposed to do about it? The librarians all hate Zophiah. She's banned from using any of the branches in our area. When I was 8, she got me to go to the library for her and check out biographies and science books and Georgette Heyer romance novels. My mother was livid when she found out, but it was too late. Zophiah had already misplaced most of them. It's really hard to write about somebody as if they're really dead. I still think Zophiah must be like sitting in her living room in her house, watching some old horror movie, dropping popcorn into her handbag. She's waiting for me to come over and play Scrabble. Nobody's ever going to return those library books now. My mother used to come home from work and roll her eyes. "Have you been telling them your fairy stories?" she'd say. "Genevieve, your grandmother is a horrible liar." Zophiah would fold up the Scrabble board and shrug at me and Jake. "I'm a wonderful liar," she'd say. "I'm the best liar in the world. Promise me you won't believe a single word." But she wouldn't tell the story of the fairy handbag to Jake. Only the old Baldezi-Warlekistanian folk tales and fairy tales about the people under the hill. She told him about how she and her husband made it all the way across Europe, hiding in haystacks and in barns. What she told me was how once, when her husband went off to find food, a farmer found her hiding in his chicken coop and tried to rape her. But she opened the fairy handbag in the way she showed me, and the dog came out and ate the farmer and all his chickens, too. She was teaching Jake and me how to curse in Baldezi Warleki. I also know how to say "I love you," but I'm not going to ever say it to anyone again except to Jake when I find him. When I was 8, I believed everything Zophiah told me. By the time I was 13, I didn't believe a single word. When I was 15, I saw a man come out of her house and get on Zophiah's 3-speed bicycle and ride down the street. He wore funny clothes. He was a lot younger than my father and mother, and even though I'd never seen him before, he was familiar. I followed him on my bike all the way to the grocery store. I waited just past the checkout lanes while he bought peanut butter, Jack Daniels, half a dozen instant cameras, at least 60 packs of Reese peanut butter cups, 3 bags of Hershey's Kisses, a handful of Milky Way bars, and other stuff from the rack of checkout candy. And while the checkout clerk was helping him bag up all that chocolate, he looked up and saw me. "Genevieve," he said. "That's your name, right?" I turned and ran out of the store. He grabbed up the bags and ran after me. I don't even think he got his change back. I was still running away, and then one of the straps on my flip-flops popped out of the sole the way they do, and that made me really angry, so I just stopped and I turned around. "Who are you?" I said. But I already knew. He looked like he could have been my mom's younger brother. He was really cute. I could see why Zophiah had fallen in love with him. His name was Rustin. Zophiah told my parents that he was an expert in Baldezi-Warlekistanian folklore who would be staying with her for a few days. She brought him over for dinner. Jake was there too, and I could tell that Jake knew something was up. Everybody except my dad knew something was going on. "You mean Baldezi-Warlekistan is a real place?" my mother asked Rustin. "My mother's telling the truth?" I could see that Rustin was having a hard time with that one. He obviously wanted to say that his wife was a horrible liar, but then, where would he be? Then he couldn't be the person he was supposed to be. There's probably a lot of things that he wanted to say, but what he actually said was, "This is really good pizza." Rustin took a lot of pictures at dinner. The next day I went with him to get the pictures developed. He'd brought some film back with him, with pictures he'd taken inside the fairy handbag, but those didn't come out very well. Maybe the film was too old. We got doubles of the pictures from dinner so that I could have some too. There's a great picture of Jake sitting outside on the porch. He's laughing, and he has his hand up to his mouth like he's going to catch the laugh. I have the picture up on my computer, and also on my wall over my bed. I bought a Cadbury cream egg for Rustin. Then we shook hands, and he kissed me, once on each cheek. "Give one of those kisses to your mother," he said, and I thought about how the next time I saw him, I might be Zophiah's age, and he would only be a few days older, and the next time I saw him, Zophiah would be dead. Jake and I might have kids. That was too weird. I know Rustin tried to get Zophiah to go back with him, to live in the handbag, but she wouldn't. "It makes me dizzy in there," she used to tell me. "And then they don't have movie theaters, and I have to look after your mother and you. And maybe when you're old enough to look after the handbag, well, then maybe I'll poke my head inside just long enough for a little visit." I didn't fall in love with Jake because he was smart. I'm pretty smart myself. I know that smart doesn't mean nice, or even mean that you have a lot of common sense. Look at all the trouble smart people get themselves into. I didn't fall in love with Jake because he could make maki rolls and had a black belt in fencing or whatever it is that you get if you're good at fencing. I didn't fall in love with Jake because he plays guitar. He's a better soccer player than he is a guitar player. Those were the reasons why I went out on a date with Jake. That and because he asked me. He asked if I wanted to go see a movie, and I asked if I could bring my grandmother, Natalie, and Natasha. He said sure, and so all 5 of us sat and watched Bring It On, and every once in a while Zofia dropped a couple of milk duds or some popcorn into her purse. I don't know if she's feeding the dog or if she's opening the purse the right way and was throwing food at her husband. I fell in love with Jake because he told stupid knock-knock jokes to Natalie and told Natasha that he liked her jeans. I fell in love with Jake when he took me and Zofia home. He walked her up to her front door, and then he walked me up to mine. I fell in love with Jake when he didn't try to kiss me. The thing is, I was nervous about the whole kissing thing. Most guys think they're better at it than they really are. Not that I think I'm a real genius at kissing either, but I don't think kissing should be a competitive sport. It isn't tennis. Natalie and Natasha and I used to practice kissing with each other just for practice. We got pretty good at it. We could see why kissing was supposed to be fun. But Jake didn't try to kiss me. Instead, he just gave me this really big hug. He put his face on my hair and he sighed. We stood there like that, and then finally I said, "What are you doing?" "I just wanted to smell your hair," he said. "Oh," I said. That made me feel weird, but in a good way. I stuck my nose in his hair, which is brown and curly, and I smelled it. We stood there and smelled each other's hair, and I felt so good. I felt happy. Jake said into my hair, "Do you know that actor John Cusack?" I said, "Yeah. One of Zofia's favorite movies is Better Off Dead. We watch it all the time." "So he likes to go up to women and smell their armpits." "Gross," I said. "That's such a lie. What are you doing now? That tickles." "I'm smelling your ear," Jake said. Jake's hair smelled like iced tea with honey in it, after all the ice has melted. Kissing Jake is like kissing Natalie or Natasha, except that it isn't just for fun. It feels like something there isn't a word for in Scrabble. The deal with Houdini is that Jake got interested in him during Advanced Placement American History. He and I were both put in 10th grade history. We were doing biography projects. I was studying Joseph McCarthy. My grandmother had all sorts of stories about McCarthy. She hated him for what he did to Hollywood. Jake didn't turn in his project. Instead, he told everyone in our AP class except for Mr. Streep, we called him Merrill, to meet him at the gym on Saturday. And when he showed up, Jake reenacted one of Houdini's escapes with a laundry bag, handcuffs, a gym locker, bicycle chains, and a school swimming pool. It took him 3.5 minutes to get free, and this guy named Roger took a bunch of photos and then put the photos online. One of the photos ended up in the Boston Globe, and Jake got expelled. The really ironic thing was that while his mom was in the hospital, Jake had applied to MIT. He did it for his mom. He thought that way she'd have to stay alive. She was so excited about MIT. A couple of days after he'd been expelled, right after the wedding, while his dad and the fencing instructor were in Bermuda, he got an acceptance letter in the mail and a phone call from this guy in the admissions office who explained why they had to withdraw the acceptance. My mother wanted to know why I let Jake wrap himself up in bicycle chains and then watched while Peter and Michael pushed him into the deep end of the pool. I said that Jake had a backup plan, 10 more seconds, and we were all going to jump into the pool and open the lock and get him out of there, but I was crying when I said that. Even before he got in the locker, I knew how stupid Jake was being. Afterwards, he promised me that he'd never do anything like that again. That was when I told him about Zofia's husband, Rustin, and about Zofia's handbag. How stupid am I? So, I guess you can figure out what happened next. The problem is that Jake believed me about the handbag. We spent a lot of time over at Zofia's, playing Scrabble. Zofia never let that fairy handbag out of her sight. She even took it with her when she went to the bathroom. I think she even slept with it under a pillow. I didn't tell her that I'd said anything to Jake. I wouldn't ever have told anybody else about it, not Natasha, not even Natalie, who is the most responsible person in all of the world. Now, of course, if the handbag turns up and Jake still hasn't come back, I'll have to tell Natalie, because somebody has to keep an eye on the stupid thing while I go find Jake. What worries me is that maybe one of the Baldezi Warlekistanians or one of the people under the hill or maybe even Rustin popped out of the handbag to run an errand and got worried when Zofia wasn't there. Maybe they'll come looking for her and bring it back. Maybe they know I'm supposed to look after it now. Or maybe they took it and hid it somewhere. Maybe someone turned it in at the Lost and Found at the library and that stupid librarian called the FBI. Maybe scientists at the Pentagon are examining the handbag right now, testing it. If Jake comes out, they'll think he's a spy, or a super weapon, or an alien or something. They're not going to just let him go. Everyone thinks Jake's ran away, except for my mother, who is convinced that he was trying out another Houdini escape and is probably lying at the bottom of a lake somewhere. She hasn't said that to me, but I can tell that's what she's thinking, and she keeps making cookies for me. What happened is that Jake said, "Can I see that for just a second?" He said it so casually that I think he caught Zofia off guard. She was reaching into the purse for her wallet. We were standing in the lobby of the movie theater on a Monday morning. Jake was behind the snack counter. He'd gotten a job there. He was wearing this stupid red paper hat and some kind of apron bib thing. He was supposed to ask us if we wanted to supersize our drinks. But he reached over the counter, took Zofia's handbag right out of her hand. He closed it, and then he opened it again. I think he opened it the right way. I don't think he ended up in the dark place. He said to me and Zofia, "I'll be right back," and then he wasn't there anymore. It was just me and Zofia and the handbag, lying there on the counter where he dropped it. If I'd been fast enough, I think I could have followed him. But Zofia had been guardian of the fairy handbag for a lot longer, and she snatched that bag back and glared at me. "He's a very bad boy," she said. She was absolutely furious. "You're better off without him, Genevieve, I think." "Give me the handbag," I said. "I have to go get him." "It isn't a toy, Genevieve," she said, "and it isn't a game. This isn't Scrabble. He comes back when he comes back, if he comes back." "Give me the handbag," I said, "or I'll take it from you." She held the handbag up high over her head so that I couldn't reach it. I hate people who are taller than me. "What are you going to do now?" Zofia said. "Are you going to knock me down? Are you going to steal the handbag? Are you going to go away and leave me here to explain to your parents where you've gone? Are you going to say goodbye to your friends? When you come out again, they will all have gone to college. They'll have jobs and babies and houses, and they won't even recognize you. Your mother will be an old woman, and I will be dead." "I don't care," I said. I sat down on the sticky red carpet in the lobby and started to cry. Someone wearing a little metal name tag came over and asked if I was okay. His name was Missy, or maybe he was wearing someone else's tag. "We're fine," Zofia said. "My granddaughter has the flu." She took my hand and pulled me up. She put her arm around me and we walked out of the theater. We never even got to see the stupid movie. We never even got to see another movie together. I don't ever want to go to another movie. The problem is, I don't want to see unhappy endings, and I don't know if I believe in the happy ones. "I have a plan," Zofia said. "I will go find Jake. You will stay here and look after the handbag." "Well, you won't come back either," I said, and I cried even harder. "And if you do, I'll be like 100 years old and Jake will be 16 still." "Everything will be okay," Zofia said. I wish I could tell you how beautiful she looked right then. It didn't matter if she was lying or if she actually knew that everything was going to be okay. The important thing was how she looked when she said it. She said, with absolute certainty, or maybe with all the skill of a very skillful liar, "My plan will work. First we go to the library, though. One of the people under the hill just brought back an Agatha Christie mystery, and I need to return it." "We're going to the library?" I said. "Why don't we just go home and play Scrabble for a while?" You probably think I was just being sarcastic here, and I was being sarcastic, but Zofia gave me a sharp look. She knew that if I was being sarcastic, then my brain was working again, and she knew that I knew she was stalling for time. She knew that I was coming up with my own plan, which was a lot like Zofia's plan, except that I was the one who went into the handbag. How was the part I was working on. "We could do that," she said. "Remember when you don't know what to do? It never hurts to play Scrabble. It's like reading the I Ching or tea leaves." "Can we please just hurry?" I said. Zofia just looked at me. "Genevieve, we have plenty of time. If you're going to look after the handbag, you have to remember that. You have to be patient. Can you be patient?" "I can try," I told her. "I'm trying, Zofia. I'm really trying hard. But it isn't fair. Jake is off having adventures and talking to animals and, who knows, learning how to fly, and some beautiful 3,000-year-old girl from under the hills teaching him how to speak fluent Baldezi Warlecki. I bet she lives in a house that runs around on chicken legs, and she tells Jake that she'd love to hear him play something on the guitar. Maybe you'll kiss her, Jake, because she put a spell on you, but whatever you do, don't go up into her house. Don't fall asleep in her bed. Come back soon, Jake, and bring that handbag with you." I hate those movies, those books, where some guy gets to go off and have adventures, and meanwhile the girl has to stay home and wait. I'm a feminist. I subscribe to Bust magazine, and I watch Buffy reruns. I don't believe in that kind of shit. We hadn't been in the library for 5 minutes before Zofia picked up a biography of Carl Sagan and dropped it in her purse. She was definitely stalling for time. She was trying to come up with a plan that would counteract the plan that she knew I was planning. I wondered what she thought I was planning. It was probably much better than anything I'd actually come up with. "Don't do that," I said. "Don't worry," Zophiah said. "Nobody was watching." "I don't care if nobody saw. What if Jake's sitting there in the boat? Or what if he was coming back and you just dropped it on his head?" "It doesn't work that way," Zophiah said. And then she said, "It would serve him right anyway." That was when the librarian came up to us. She had a name tag on as well. I was so sick of people and their stupid name tags. I'm not even going to tell you what her name was. "I saw that," the librarian said. "Saw what?" Zophiah said. She smiled down at the librarian like she was queen of the library and the librarian was a petitioner. The librarian stared hard at her. "I know you," she said, almost sounding awed, like she was a weekend bird watcher who had just seen Bigfoot. "We have your picture on the office wall. You're Miss Swink. You aren't allowed to check out books here." "That's ridiculous," Zophiah said. She was at least 2 feet taller than the librarian. I felt a bit sorry for the librarian, actually. After all, Zophiah had just stolen a 7-day book. She probably wouldn't return it for 100 years. My mother has always made it clear that it's my job to protect other people from Zophiah. I guess I was Zophiah's guardian before I became the guardian of the handbag, actually. The librarian reached up, grabbed Zophiah's handbag. She was small, but she was strong. She jerked the handbag, and Zophiah stumbled and fell back against the work desk. I couldn't believe it. Everyone except for me was getting a look at Zophiah's handbag. What kind of guardian was I going to be? "Genevieve," Zophiah said. She held my hand very tightly, and I looked at her. She looked wobbly and pale, and she said, "I feel very bad about all of this. Tell your mother I said so." Then she said one last thing, but I think it was in Baldezi Werlecki. The librarian said, "I saw you put a book in here, right here." She opened the handbag and peered inside. Out of the handbag came a long, lonely, ferocious, and utterly hopeless scream of rage. I don't ever want to hear that noise again. Everyone in the library looked up. The librarian made a choking noise and threw Zophiah's handbag away from her. A little trickle of blood came out of her nose and a drop fell on the floor. What I thought at first was that it was just plain luck that the handbag was closed when it landed. Later on, I was trying to figure out what Zophiah said. My Baldezi Werlecki isn't very good, but I think she was saying something like, "Figures, stupid librarian. I have to go take care of that damn dog." So maybe that's what happened. Maybe Zophiah sent part of herself in there with the skinless dog. Maybe she fought it and won and closed the handbag. Maybe she made friends with it. I mean, she used to feed it popcorn at the movies. Maybe she's still in there. What happened in the library was Zophiah sighed a little and closed her eyes. I helped her sit down in a chair, but I don't think she was really there anymore. I rode with her in the ambulance when the ambulance finally showed up, and I swear I didn't even think about the handbag until my mother showed up. I didn't say a word. I just left her there in the hospital with Zophiah, who was on a respirator, and I ran all the way back to the library, but it was closed. So I ran all the way back again to the hospital, but you already know what happened, right? Zophiah died. I hate writing that. My tall, funny, beautiful, book-stealing, Scrabble-playing, storytelling grandmother died. But you never met her. You're probably wondering about the handbag. What happened to it? I put up signs all over town, like Zophiah's handbag was some kind of lost dog, but nobody ever called. So that's the story so far. Not that I expect you to believe any of it. Last night, Natalie and Natasha came over and we played Scrabble. They don't really like Scrabble, but they feel like it's their job to cheer me up. I won. After they went home, I flipped all the tiles upside down, and then I started picking them up in groups of 7. I tried to ask a question, but it was hard to pick just one. The words I got weren't so great either, so I decided they weren't English words. They were Baldezi Werlecki words. Once I decided that, everything became perfectly clear. First I put down Kirif, which means happy news, and then I got a B and an O and an L and an E, F, another I, an S, and a Z. So then I could make Kirif into Bolekiriz, which means the happy result of a combination of diligent effort and patience. I would find the fairy handbag. The tiles said so. I would work the clasp and go into the handbag, and I'd have my own adventures, and I would rescue Jake. Hardly any time would have gone by before we came back out of this handbag, and maybe I'd even make friends with that poor dog and get to say goodbye for real to Zophiah. Rustin would show up again and be really sorry that he'd missed Zophiah's funeral, and this time he would be brave enough to tell my mother the whole story. He would tell her that he was her father, and not that she would believe him. Not that you should believe this story. Promise me, actually, that you won't believe a word.